Hello and welcome to the channel. Welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be replacing a fuel pump in a Miata. Now, you're going to want to do this if you have an old and tired fuel pump that's burning itself out, or if you want to get more fuel to your car if you're turbocharged or supercharged. Without further ado, let's get right into how to replace a fuel pump on a Miata. Before you could remove your fuel pump, you need to know where it is. So your fuel pump is located in your gas tank, which is under this carpet on the back deck of this car. To lift this carpet up, there are a bunch of clips like this that we're going to pry out. To remove these things, go ahead and get a pry tool under them and just pry them out. You do want to be careful because these things do tend to get brittle and break, so just go easy, be gentle with them, and pop them all out of place. Go ahead along the whole row here and get those all out. You can go ahead and peel back your carpet and reveal the fuel pump cover, which is this thing right under here. You'll see it better once I get this out of the way. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, this is the cover that we're going to have to remove to access that fuel pump. I will also note that I have added obstacles in the way here. I have my harness bar with my bicycle mount and my fire extinguisher mount, so I do have to work around those. You most likely will not have issues with clearance here, but either way, it's not that bad to just get all of these screws out. And with all your screws out, you'll be able to get this access panel out of the way. And under this panel is our gas tank, and under that right there is our fuel pump. So that's the next thing that we're going to need to remove. Before we pop that out, there are a few quick things we need to do. So what we need to do here is disconnect this electrical harness. There's a little lever right here where my thumb is, and then we need to disconnect these two fuel lines. You will note that I have a glass top on my car, and that glass window top makes it a little bit harder to access everything and situate everything. And do be extra careful to not break your top while you're doing this, because it does limit your access, and after we will have to move this to pull the fuel pump up and out. Next, go ahead and remove your gas cap so that way your tank depressurizes itself. Then you could go ahead and remove these clips on the fuel lines. And now we'll need to pull these fuel lines off. Now's a good time to get something under here to catch that fuel that may come out of these lines. And once they're pretty free, you could go ahead and pull them off. I want to take this opportunity now to say that you should be doing this in a well-ventilated area, and if you're not and you're in a garage like I am right now, you need to have your windows open and fans going, and you need to make sure that you're not getting fuel vapor backed up in the space that you're changing out this pump. Also, I want to take the opportunity to say that if you're enjoying this video and you want to support this channel more, I have these Miata shirts that I designed down in the description below, or you could go over to my Patreon account where you'll get exclusive benefits and see all of my content early. With that, let's get right back into this video, finish pulling this pump, and get it back installed. Alright, next up we need to go around and remove all of these screws that are holding this pump in. These things are just a Phillips head, and as always you want to be careful to not strip these out. I would get them all cracked loose and then go ahead and remove them all the way. It goes without saying, but be very careful to not drop these because there's a chance that you will never see them again. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove these little clips so I don't lose these, and then we'll be able to lift the pump out of the tank. Now, you do want to be careful while you lift this thing out because there's a lot more on this thing than just the pump. There's a float, and it goes down pretty far into the tank, which you'll see here in just a second. Gonna let this thing drip off for a little bit here, and as you can see, there's our pump and the rest of the assembly. Alright, so I took this thing outside to do this change, and this is our fuel pump assembly here. This is the fuel pump itself. This is your float that tells you how high your gas is in the tank and controls your gas gauge. This is a filter that goes to the fuel pump, and then under here is a rubber seal, and you want to inspect that seal that runs around the outside and make sure that's in good shape. That way your tank will actually seal back up once you put this back together. Also, this is the reason I'm doing this outside, because you will be dripping some gas while you're doing this process. To get this thing off, we need to remove this rubber band here. We need to unclip the pump itself, and we need to unscrew that bottom mount with that little Phillips screw right there. Nice. Alright, so with that screw out, we were able to remove this mounting bracket down below here, and then I went ahead and undid this rubber band, and the next thing that we need to do is undo this electrical harness right here that goes to the pump. It looks like it just pulls right out of place. And just like that, here's our old fuel pump. And now you're probably thinking that you're ready to put your new pump back in, and you pretty much are, but before you do that, you want to go ahead and check in here and look at those O-rings, and I would just replace these. My kit came with new ones, so I'm going to put brand new ones in. I guess if yours are okay, you might be able to reuse them, but I would just put fresh ones in there. Alright, so as it turns out, I was actually shipped the wrong pump, so I'm going to put the stock one back in just so I could use the car until I get the correct pump here. So there are some things that you may have to modify if you're doing an upgraded pump. On the 90 to 93s, you have that little funnel right there, and some pumps require you to cut that off and trim this. Others do not. Now, if you're just putting the stock pump back in, you're just going to follow the reverse of what you did to take everything apart. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and get the O-ring on there, get that little spacer on there, and there's another plastic spacer floating around here somewhere that I'm going to put on, and then we're going to assemble this and get this thing back in the car. Another quick note is on later cars, you won't have that funnel at all, and there should be a little piece of hose that runs between the fuel pump and this pickup tube. Now that thing's all set to go, you should put a little bit of silicone lube or something on that O-ring when you slide it in place there so it doesn't bind up or twist or break on itself. But now we could go ahead and get that back up into place. Then we'll go ahead and put that screw back in and then plug it back in, and this thing will be all set to go back into the car. And of course, after checking for extra parts, I realized I forgot to put this little rubber band thing back on, so I'm going ahead and doing that now, and then I'll assemble it all back together. And now we could go ahead and drop our fuel pump back in. Now you do need to be careful with that float there. You don't want that getting caught up. So just make sure that you tuck that down into the tank and that it gets in there nicely. And then you'll need to wiggle this around a little bit, but you'll feel where it wants to go and it'll just drop down in there. Just like that. Next thing we need to do is just line up all of those screw holes, put those screws back in, plug this back in, and get your lines on. Alright, now that those are all touched down, I'm just going to lightly go around this thing. I've heard people doing star patterns, some people going right around, but just do it in stages, go a little bit at a time, and you'll be in really good shape with this. You do need to keep in mind which hoses these came off, but it's pretty self-explanatory. They'll want to sit where they want to go. And just like that, everything is installed, and now you want to put your key on, let the fuel pump prime a few times, so turn the key on and off a few times, and then just look for leaks around this area. If there aren't any, go ahead and put your cover back on and put that carpet back down in place, and you're all set. And so guys, with all that, that's going to wrap up this video. If you want to see a bunch of different fuel pump options for Miatas, I have them linked down below. Everything from stock replacements to really high flow fuel pumps are down there. If you want to support the channel even more, once again, you could go over and check out my Patreon page, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like this video if you did, and I hope you subscribe for the next one. Take care.